My buddy took a shit on another high school's football field. Freshman year of high school, we all went to Cuff Catholic, which was a local Catholic school in the area. A lot of people didn't like us because we were the all-guys Catholic prep school. Everyone knows the stereotypes about those type of schools. A lot of us were from various towns in the Kentucky area. A group of my buddies, they were all from the Union area down by this high school called Ryle. This was before any of us could drive, so when you get together for playing a game of pickup football or practicing for another sport, you just meet at the closest high school to you that has the available facilities. So a group of my buddies meet up at Ryle's football field, had the bright orange end zones for their school colors. At the time, it was one of the nicest fields in the area. Finished this game of pickup football. I don't remember if they were walking back or waiting for a ride, but one of our buddies jogs out right at sunset, takes a crap on the Ryle logo, and they took off out of there. So obviously, news spread of somebody taking a human shit on the Ryle logo because he did it right on midfield, right on their logo. Word spread. Nobody knew who did it. Ironically, I think every school knows you have traditional crosstown rival, whoever your main rival is traditionally at your high school, but it does seem like each year two schools, the way they match up in sports just makes it for a really good rivalry. And we had a big rivalry with Ryle all through I want to say it was my first 2 or 3 years at Covcath, but that there was a good beef there. It was hysterical for us by the time we were seniors. We never heard who took the shit. It was just one of those Northern Kentucky rumor mill things where somebody took a shit on the Ryle field. We never knew it was one of our classmates until our senior year of high school. It was actually one of my good friends on the cross country team was part of the pickup football game, and it was a group of probably like 8 or 10 guys that just never spread. They never told anybody about it till years later. And this thing's just a hilarious story. There's so many funny storylines with that because we had I don't know if it's really like a good tradition, but there's like a historical tradition at Covcath of right before our Highlands week, they used to have a kid who would shit in the hallway. They called him the Phantom Pooper. I don't know when it started. It was years before us. And by the time we were in school, which was 2012 through 2016, they had security cameras in the hallway and stuff. But they used to have one kid from their class before the Highlands game would shit at Cupcap in the hallway. Like, it's just a messed up thing. I don't know where the tradition started. I don't know why, but they called him the Phantom Pooper. So each class had like a traditional Phantom Pooper. We did not have a Phantom Pooper for the Highlands game, but technically when you look back at it, even though we didn't find out, the rest of the class didn't find out till a few years later, but one of our buddies was the Phantom Pooper of Ryle. He pooped right on the logo. So that was just a hilarious story. One of those things I don't think I'll ever forget. By the time we got to senior year, we were friends with a lot of the Ryle kids. I mean, honestly, that's one thing I can't stress enough to all the high schoolers that follow this is like, yes, enjoy the beefs when it comes to sports and cheering sections and all the Twitter and social media beef. Enjoy that shit because it is fun to go back and forth with different schools. But by the time you graduate or you get older and move on to jobs or whatever your next step is after high school, you will end up meeting kids from other high schools who are very similar to you or they'll end up being some of your best friends. I mean, I'm speaking from experience. Me and all my buddies have friends from different high schools that we beefed with when we went to Cuff Cath, and now we look back and laugh on it. So enjoy it, have fun with it, but just keep it between the lines, so to speak, to a degree, because you got to remember, like, just because a school has a stereotype, it doesn't mean that everybody there is a piece of shit or a terrible person. Like, that's not the truth of it. I mean, I look at me and my buddies, and we were absolutely like the shit starters of our school, and we definitely at times took stuff too far, but never did we look at a high school and say every person in there is a piece of shit. You just had fun with the rivalries when you're a high school student because it is fun. Everyone knows it's fun to go back and forth between the student sections, different cheers and stuff. It's fun to go back and forth on Twitter, but it really all is in good fun. Like, it's fun to heckle each other and talk shit. That is a natural thing, I believe, for high schoolers, just to have that beef back and forth. And what was so funny, especially with the Ryle rivalry that we had when we were there, is like they all called us like the rich prep school kids. But like for my perspective, I lived out in Grant County. That's where I grew up. It's kind of like a country county out in the sticks, so to speak, at least compared to Northern Kentucky. And when I looked at them, like, if you look at the cars pulled into the Ryle parking lot, like, they're one of the richest public school districts in the area. Like, they had just as many D1 kids and wealthy kids as we did. You know what I mean? So it was always funny for me to see that parallel, like, when they made, like, talk to Cub Cast stereotype. It's like, you guys are pretty similar to us. You just have girls at your school. So, so that was just always a funny thing about the high school beefs. And that's another hilarious thing when I look back at the social dynamic of high school. The rumors that get spread through the school and the way that they grow and grow and grow into something way more serious or crazier than what actually happened by the end of your school day. There's a couple times I've been a part of those rumors, and you say one thing that you did, and by the time you get down to lunch a few hours later, it's much bigger than it was, and then by the end of the day, it's like the most legendary thing in the world. And there's been a couple times I just roll with it, like, oh yeah, I definitely did that, knowing what actually happened and what me and my buddies actually told people, but it grew into this rumor throughout the day. So that's always something that I love about just human nature, right? When it comes to gossip and storytelling, everybody wants to talk about it like they were involved or like they had a bigger role in it than they actually did, right? So they want to exaggerate and tell it in a bigger way. So when it gets to so when they get to tell their group of people, it sounds a certain way. You know what I mean? So that's something that I've always enjoyed about just the perspective of just human exchange when it comes to telling stories. It just seems like it's human nature to kind of embellish and make it bigger than it was the first time. And I something that I cannot wait for is like I have my personal perspective of all of these experiences and stories that I have, right? Like this is how I saw it go down. This is what I remember from a story or whatever it is. And I cannot wait till I start to have more of my friends and family on to kind of go over this content and hear their versions of the story the way that they saw it, or we can kind of put two and two together and see what really happened. Because it's like that old saying about when it comes to couples, right? There's the man's version and the woman's version, and the truth is somewhere in between. And I think that's actually bigger than just with couples. I think that's with any group of friends. Everybody has a different version or perspective of certain memories or things that happen throughout the night, when you go out or whatever. So I always have, that's something that I've always appreciated throughout my life is just anytime I hang out with my friends or family, just hearing all the different perspectives of different memories or of our day or whatever it was that we were doing together. You hear the different versions or the different views from the same situation. It's really comical to look back on it here. And it's funny to kind of hear yourself from another perspective, because that's one thing I don't know if it's necessarily a good or bad thing, but just a truth that I've accepted about me and my friends is like I've never said that me and my friends are good people or nice guys or whatever. And one thing you definitely know is anytime someone tells you how good they are, or how nice of a person they are, they're definitely fucking lying. And that's I'm speaking from personal experience because anytime I was always trying to convince people, if you have to convince somebody that you're a nice guy or that you're a good person, you're probably not that nice of a person. That's one thing I've really enjoyed about the friends that I have now when I look back of our years of hanging out together in the various stages of life is like I'm not sitting here saying that I have a group of priests or good people around me. We've all done a lot of stupid shit. We all have a lot of bad habits or things that we might not be proud of, but we're all very loyal, genuine people. And I guess that's one thing for me is like I don't want friends that can vouch for what a good guy I am. I want friends that have my back and that I know in a phone call, heartbeat, we could go to war with each other. I don't know. For me, that's just something I'd rather have that type of friend. Like, hey, look, we both might be idiots or jackasses at times, but I know you're a ride or die, and I'll take that over the guy who could say, "Oh yeah, I vouch for Tom. He's a really good guy." Because I don't really. Who cares? Who cares what anybody thinks of you? Because the reality of it is, no matter how good of a person that you think you are, somebody's going to have a shitty perspective of you. I mean, that is just a reality of life. Everybody's perspective of you is going to be a little different or a little biased or judgmental depending on what their experience is with you. Think about, really think, I look back on, I'm only 25, I look back at my 25 years of life, and I know there's people that definitely hate seeing me telling these stories because I guarantee you their perspective of me is very different than my perspective of them. You know what I mean? So it's just one of those things you have to embrace it. Like I said, that is one thing that I find so enjoyable and fascinating about life is that every single person, whether we realize it or not, has a totally different perspective of the world and the way that their life is going or the way that they see another person's life. Like, I just find that fascinating. And I don't, I haven't done enough of, like, is it sociology, a study of human behavior, I think, or just philosophy or whatever you want to call the observation of human behavior. But I do find that just so fascinating, is how every individual, while we're all, from a surface level, we're all living very similar lives, whatever you want to call the very simplistic view of humans in our day to day. When you really get to know people, everybody is so freaking different, and there's so many unique individuals who appear just to be another average Joe on the surface. So I'm not saying that I'm correct in anything. I just find it fascinating, all the different perspectives of life. So, like I said, I don't know how I got onto that after talking about a kid shitting on a football field, but an absolutely hilarious memory. And I really can't emphasize enough, like, for your own sake, especially if you do plan on going to college locally or whatever your next step is, just don't 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 block off every single person or decide that you're just gonna brutally, viciously hate one high school, because you'll probably end up, if you go to college, like I said, or go to work afterwards, one of your favorite coworkers or roommates or fraternity brothers or whatever it ends up being, you're gonna end up being like, oh my gosh, dude, this guy's awesome. And then you guys are gonna say, where'd you go to high school? And be like, Rao and Cuff Kath, and you'll be like, oh, we were supposed to hate each other. That's just stupid, high school, just leave all the high school beef between the lines and stuff, because like I said, it's a lot of fun to have the back and forth beefs with different high schools, but it's not worth carrying over the rest of your life. That's just ridiculous. So, so that's my story today. I got a lot more Ryle High School stories to come on here. I've had a lot of high school stories flashing into my mind recently, since that last couple ones. I've had a lot of people asking about, oh, can we hear a story about this high school or that high school, or I go to that high school, and I'm just kind of having all these stories flashing out from my memory bank that I'm kind of excited to share, because me and my buddies were the dudes who, on paper, we were irrelevant. We drew no attention to ourselves because we were the cross country runners, but we did have like this, like, we were kind of like the street justice of our high school, because kids from our school would literally come to us and say, this is the sporting event this week. This is the kid that's been talking the most shit from this select team. Can you find where he lives and do something to, like, fuck with him before the game? And we're like, oh yeah, no problem. Bring all that to us. so so it was just funny, just a funny thing that we did in high school, and it kind of became our niche. That became our niche as the cross country guys, because we had such a low profile. so so yeah, shout out all my XC bros. Shout out everyone from the graduating Cuff Cath class of 2016. And we're just going to keep rolling here on Talks with Tom. I appreciate everyone who's decided to follow and subscribe. It's pretty cool to kind of watch your page grow. And we're just going to keep going and see where it takes us. Peace out. Hope everyone's well. We'll see you soon. Taking shots by the lake till I can't even breathe no more. See no more. I was riding around town thinking to myself, is it gonna get easier? I'll be up and away up the street getting paid, but I can't even breathe no more. What's it to me? What can I see? Taking shots by the lake till I can't even breathe no more. See no more. I'm recording a podcast. What do you need? I'll be done in like 15 minutes. So